Okie dokie. So I've found that the best way for me to find the mistakes that I've missed is to try to make a video out of the new features that I've been working on in my video game. So this is Ace Racers SP, and I've just been playing around with some of the cameras. So nothing's really changed here. This is the warp ship that does the object placing. All of my changes are really in the cameras for the drone. So I really only have 2 additional cameras, and the way that they work is this one is a fixed camera, but it's in third-person view, and you can zoom it and you can move it around. And when you do these things, if you then switch back to the FPV camera, which is much better to fly with, and then you then switch back to the third-person camera, it'll maintain that position that you left it in unless you recenter it. So you can always recenter it, and then you can move it around, zoom it in and out, and you can recenter it. And you can switch to space mode at any moment. And actually, if you switch to space mode after moving your camera and switch back, it'll still remember your camera's position. And then I can switch back to FPV, and then I can switch back to the other camera, and I can switch back to FPV. So it's pretty good. And then the other camera is actually the camera that you already see at the top of the 3 stack. Here, I'll toggling these ones off. This top one right here is a follow cam, and you can see that if I go flying over here now, it'll start to, once I get some velocity, it'll move behind the vehicle. And this is actually also not the best to fly through, because you see that whole time right there, there's this delay where you can't see where you're going. In deep space, that's not necessarily a problem, or in some games it's not necessarily a problem, but if I'm in really close proximity to everything and I need to see kind of where I'm going around really close to things, then you can see I'm looking in front, but that top camera there is not looking front. So it's not the best to fly from, at least not all the time, but as it happens, it is nice to look at. So it is kind of nice to look at. I can't fly from it at all. I never try that. But if I get some angle here, and you can see that I'm going down this other way, and then I just start changing my velocity, then you can see that it is kind of a nice looking view. So I guess what I should do is set up an FPV camera that you can put into the side, so that when you switch to this mode, then you get the FPV camera popping up here in the corner. I didn't think about that. It's actually a pretty good idea. I'm not sure how easy it'll be to have these switch, but probably won't be too hard. So maybe I'll work on that at some point in the future. But for now, I'm actually quite happy with having this camera right here, because now if I make a video and what I want to do is I want to fly over here, and I wasn't going to put these cameras in the game. I wasn't terribly excited about putting these cameras in the game. I know that they're nice, and if you want to show people your game, it's much nicer to have some camera variety. But I wasn't terribly concerned with how everything looked, because, you know, I just want to fly through the FPV camera. But then I started putting these dockable weights in the game. So this over here, right in the center, this is a regular dock. So, I mean, it's obviously it's not connected. You kind of gotta play imagination here. But if I dock to this one, then my ship freezes in place. Let me just get lined up to dock. So now I'm docked. So if I dock to this one, now I can do whatever I want to do. Oops, wrong button. I can move my controls. Nothing's going to happen. This is a fixed dock. So if I undock, then I come over here, these are dockable weights. So then if I do the same thing, now these also, they stay fixed until you connect up to them. You know, Space Magic still is applying here, even though I'm trying to have this realistic thrust. There's only so much I can do, but once I'm connected, now I'm docked up to this weight. And it would be cool if I could then show the weight in the screen as well. So one thing about this weight is now all of my thrust is happening at the back of the ship, right? Because that whole front section, it's not that heavy. This orange one is only 2, whereas my ship in norm is 100. So the mass difference isn't very big, and actually if I accelerate forward, I get moving. It's not really that different. But when I want to rotate around, because the vessel is now so much longer, but all of the thrust is being applied at the back, if I do my laterals, I get a strong rotation, and my normal rotation is very weak. So it's quite fun to play with this dockable weights. It kind of turns the thing into like driving a bigger ship, or like a freighter, or like a barge, or a trailer, or something like that. There's different ways of imagining. But I wanted to be able to show off my dockable weights because I'm just really excited about it. I think it's really fun. I can't believe, I never thought of it. It was just like an accident. First I was going to make the dock. I was like, yeah, I want to practice docking in my game. I can place hoops, I can race through them. I want to practice docking. I've been playing a lot of Flight of Nova recently, and one of the things that I really liked about Flight of Nova is the docking that you can do. And this is a little bit different. I mean, it's not exactly the same thing, but you do kind of have to line up to this just right. And then you can dock, and I can adjust how much you need to line up, but it's kind of loose, but actually that's pretty close. And then I might even switch it to where you can dock to the top or to a side, and then your controls don't change. And so it'll be quite challenging because you're going to be looking through a side camera. Maybe I'm going to get a different ship in the game that has docking on more sides. I may just do it on this one, but the reason I don't want to do that with this one is because this one has a single camera. Oh, look, I can show. This one has a single camera, which I need to change the artwork for so you can see it better. And there's just one little camera there, and I kind of like that. It's like a little drone, like a quadcopter drone. So now that I have these dockable weights, though, I could make bigger ones and make like different kind of challenges around that. And so then I would have a bigger thruster drone that would have multiple cameras. And I have a multiple camera system in place already for the rock hopper, which I cannot show with the third person camera because that camera does not work on the rock hopper yet. So this one, when I use these camera switches, it just switches to the various cameras mounted on the hull of the rock hopper. So that's the top view. Here's the front view, the main one that you might fly from. And you really need these with a slow-moving rock hopper, lunar lander style vehicle. I just call it the rock hopper because I like that. But I think it's a nice name for it. Anyways, once you're starting to come into like a landing pad, you need to be upright. It's really critical to have these other camera options. And then because your thrust is coming out of the bottom and it's going to affect where you want to go, then it's also nice to have the 45 up camera, and the straight up camera does actually come into play, but not as much. The main cameras are the 45 camera up and the 45 camera down, and then of course you need the front camera. But actually this up camera, I think that if I was better at playing, or if I played on the higher thrust settings, I would use this one more. And then the down camera, same thing. I mean, if you're going to be dropping straight out of the ground, straight to the ground as fast as you can go, and you want to really control your thrust. But it's a little disorienting for me still to fly on this down camera. I'm getting a little bit better at the 45 down camera and the 45 up camera, and I think that the down camera and the up camera will come with time. You would think the up camera would be the same as the drone camera front, but some of the controls get all inverted when you use different cameras. And then if you're going to fly predominantly out of the front camera, then you want to switch your controls so that front is front, but then up camera, now front is up, and on the drone it would be like the up camera except it would be the front camera, and so all kinds of things get switched around all over the place, which is why I want to eventually get it set up so that you can dock to every side of the drone, because that way you can practice doing careful movements with all of your controls all being inverted and switched around. So the pitch, actually the pitch doesn't really invert. I just did that. I play with the pitch inverted on the one and not inverted on the other one. But the roll and the yaw, those get switched and inverted a lot. And the forward and back or up and down, that gets switched around a lot. And the left and right never really changes. But that's because I'm never flying through a left and right camera. I'm always flying through either a front, a belly, or an angle of those two. And then if I flew through the left and right cameras, that would actually invert other controls, because then my left would be forward and my right would be forward, depending on which side reverse. And so then your forward and back turn into your left and right. And when you're trying to do careful things like that from every different angle, and you really need every different angle. I mean, by the time you add all the cameras in, you need to be able to play any control from any control. So, and actually then it starts to get really important that your controls have some consistency to them, which is why I like having so many actual joysticks, because some of them are joysticks and some of them are buttons, and you try to fly a spaceship. Then that can work for certain settings, like if all you're going to do is fly forward and shoot a gun all the time at a distance out in open space, like an X-Wing or something like that, then it doesn't matter so much about all of your other controls because you're not doing anything. But if you're going to try flying close quarters, doing things like lots of docking, or flying a big clumsy thing through hoops, which is the point of this game, is to fly the big clumsy thing through hoops, then you start to really kind of want to be able to see what's around you, because it's just hard to kind of try to keep track of everything, and a lot of times you can't see it until you're heading that way anyway, so there's no keeping track of anything unless you memorize the route, which is kind of defeats the purpose of my whole game here, because once you actually get in here to this game, half the game is to set up a brand new little set of hoops and then fly through it, you know, one time. And that's part of the major thing that I have going on here, is that you can fairly easily set yourself up with a new maneuvering challenge just in a couple of seconds there, and I have a new maneuvering challenge, and you can do that with all different kind of colors and different obstacles. Here's my dockable weight bays. I'm so proud of these. Yeah. So then here you can just set yourself up and, oh, you want to carry a weight through those hoops. Well, wouldn't that be great? I'll just grab this weight right here. This is the 3.5 weight. The orange is 2. This blue one is 3.5. And let me just dock here. It's kind of hard. You gotta get your angle just right. You can see I'm lining those two pluses up with each other until I get that green square. So now I'm connected here, and there's my hoops. So let me just get over down here to my hoops, and I have to be careful, because if I push up or down, it actually gives me spin, or if I push left and right, it gives me spin. And then my spin controls, they don't actually give me that much spin. So even though I have lots of acceleration power, because this weight is only 3 mass units, whereas my drone is 100 mass units, the position of the mass compared to where the position of the thrust makes it quite dramatic. And so I'd love to switch my camera here and show you my new camera, but I'm just not very good at the buttons, you know? Not a very good video gamer. Oh my goodness. I'm crashing. Okay. Let me try one time to come into these hoops right here. And let me set up my camera view. And so this is a nice thing about being able to set the camera and then switch back to it, is you can set your angle and then you can check it. Oh, another cool thing about having this big weight out on the end is you don't spin that much when you bounce. So here I am traversing my weight through the hoops. And look at that. Who gets to do that? Nobody. Nobody ever gets to do that. And using Ace Racer's SP, I gotta undock while I'm in this mode. I was able to jump into my warp hopper. I was able to select some obstacles. Actually, it's kind of a little bit of annoying clicking through all these buttons. And then I can set up all of my favorite colors of hoops. And if I don't like where that one is, but I switch so many buttons, oh my goodness, there's too many items and I don't have to hit one button at a time. I can actually just connect up to it once I get that green circle on, and then I can just fly this around. I'll just come over here. And then I can fly my way through that, or I can just park at the dock. Or if I don't want even thrust on all sides, I do have a half lats. You can see that right there. Half lats, which even shows up in the less cluttered view. So half lats means that I have less lateral thrust and up and down thrust. They're both 50% of the forward and reverse, which, as you can see, wrong button, it does make sense for my vessel because I have 4 but only 2. So let me just dock here and then I'll stop recording. Docked. Alright, thank you very much.